should we worry? No one will care, girl. Look at the stars, so far away. We've got tonight. Who needs tomorrow? We've got tonight, babe. Why don't you stay? Deep in my soul, I've been so lonely. All of my hopes fading away. I've longed for love like everyone else does. I've seen it all and hear it all. What do you say? We've got tonight. Who needs tomorrow? We've got tonight, babe. Why don't you stay? Still here we are, both of us lonely, both of us lonely. We've got tonight.
Who needs tomorrow? Hi guys, welcome to the Transparency. How are we doing? Midnight. Make yourself known. I'm a huge fan of Bob Seger, so I thought that song was very appropriate because you actually don't know, you're hanging out with your friends, you think like who needs tomorrow because you're living in the moment. So I picked that song specifically for college kids that were living in the moment. But thank you guys for joining me. Let's talk about it. Again, Chicken Head says, I've outdone myself with the music choice. Again, I'm a huge Seeger fan. If you grew up with like amazing parents like I did, they loved music like I love music, and it shows. But let's talk about it. We have to talk about the white elephant in the room, and I'll be the first to talk about it. So, first of all, I want to say hi to everybody that's in chat. Hi, Hot Ham. Christine, good to see you. Jeremiah, you're just a fabulous guy. Chicken Head. Melon, I'm so happy that this is your favorite channel because it's my favorite channel too. Ashley, look out, girl. Look out. We're stealing you. Melissa, put a BEX in it because I'm done. How are you? Never seen this one. We got the clan in town. And then, let's see who else. Oh, Lori K. Hi. And Ellen. Just names that popped up in chat before we got started. So, I wanted to say hi to you guys. Thank you for dealing with me being 6 minutes tardy. So, and thank you for the people that have been buying memberships for other people, because now I get to see you guys pop as green, and it's pretty cool. Oh, a new membership right there. Just Kendra all over it. Blind Squirrel, everybody finds a nut. Miss Thang 65. Well, hopefully you love the number 6 plus 5 equals 11. Because I know you ain't 65 with that profile pic. Sanger. Yeah, oh, one of my good friends from Sanger. Look out. And Miss Marple all the way from Miss Marple. Good to see you. All right, guys, here we go. Let's talk about it. Where were the two roommates, the two surviving roommates, prior to arriving at the house that night? Does anybody know? So I'm waiting for you guys to answer my question, which is, where were the two surviving roommates? Where were they prior to arriving at home that night? Does anybody know? Has media talked about it? Oh, thank you so much. That's very nice. Thank you, clan. Tarantula clan. My son, he either loves spiders or he hates spiders. You just gotta catch him on a good day. Yeah, everybody says they keep checking their social media to see what's up. Exactly. There you go. That's the correct answer, Miss Robbins. Is nobody has talked about, and the media hasn't, and no one's come forward to say where the other two roommates were before going into their bedrooms and locking their doors, making it seem like the other two people that actually had bedrooms there. And I say two because that's exactly what it was. Kaylee no longer lived there, and Ethan was only there because his girlfriend lived there. So we're talking about two other possible bedrooms, which means you have obviously the living room if people were to sleep on the couch, and they're keeping it hush hush as far as where people were. But if you go back and listen to Ethan's parents' first interview, they do talk about the fact that him and his girlfriend were found in the same room. I felt like she was about to slip and say the bedroom, but, I'm not going to go ahead and disclose that because that would be, that's not what she said. So that would be wrong. No media saying where, which is odd. How didn't they hear anything? It's not about the fact for me is like, if they didn't hear anything or that, I'm not too concerned with that. I'm concerned with where they were. We know where the two girls were that went to the bar and then the food truck and then home. We know that Ethan and his girlfriend went to a frat party and then came home, but we're not being told where the other two were prior to coming home at 1 o'clock and going straight to bed. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about college life. If you're out and about, so the two girls that left and went to the pub at 10 p.m., that means you're not having a house party that night. That means you are pre-gaming. That means you're at either your house or a different house and you're pre-gaming. And then you're going out. And then instead of your other friends going to where you went, they went to a different party because of whatever reasons. So your house was not having a party that night. Allegedly, because we don't know what the other two roommates were doing. Maybe they were throwing the house party. But I think it's very, very important to talk about the fact that no one's talking about where the other two roommates, the surviving roommates, were prior to coming home and allegedly being in bed. And we only know that they were in bed based on their account, right? No one's seen documentation that, what if they weren't even home that night? Who knows? So I want to know where the two surviving roommates were that night. And I think it's kind of crazy that no one's talking about that. Like, why aren't we asking that question? Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which would be, where were the two girls that were survived from this massacre? Like, where were they prior to coming home that night? And why I think it's important is because everybody talks now, as far as law enforcement, that one of them were targeted. Well, I think it's safe to say that the two girls that weren't murdered weren't targeted, right? So throw them out. And now you're with 4 people, which of 2 didn't even live there anymore. So now you're down to 2 people. This is what you call logic. It's chicken head wants to call it the pink elephant in the room. We'll use pink. That's fine. So we're down to 2 roommates, which would either be Ethan's girlfriend, or Madison, right? Because everybody else technically didn't live there, right? But then you think to yourself, well, maybe not. Because what about if somebody was actually targeting people that didn't live there, but they happened to catch wind that they're out and about that night. They're going to spend the night in that house. So now we have an opportunity to get to that person. But I think it's important to talk about the fact that where were the other two roommates? We know like full blown where the four other people were. Why is it not being disclosed where the other two people were? We know where the four murdered people were. Why aren't we talking about where the two surviving roommates were that night? I just think that's crazy. And I think that the families think it's crazy to the point that they're going to keep their mouths closed for right now. And then I think they're going to start spilling their guts only because that's the vibe I get. And I guess I'll be one of the first channels to talk about it. Let's see what you guys think. Kaylee was leaving for Texas. Absolutely. She was living at home. One of the surviving roommates made an Insta post at 3:30 a.m. I don't know if that's true. That's the first time I'm hearing that. So that's news to me. That neighbor dude, the media worsh law student, is kind of creepy. Well, no doubt. I think anybody that fangirls over media is creepy. Who wants media? Like, I'm sorry, but you just don't. Kaylee came back to visit and show off her new Range Rover. Anyone find it odd that she has a Range Rover? Absolutely. We do. But I want to talk about, we have all these web sleuths. Where were these two girls? Where were these two girls? I know, right? Sanger, Texas. Can you believe it? I just thought it was your alt. Hopefully they find a wealth of info on all of their phones. I'm sure. But we don't even know if their phones are there. Because remember, the surviving family members only broke into their phones because they knew their passwords. And they were actually on the one mom's cell phone bill. So they were able to get into things and expedite things a lot quicker. But can you imagine if like that didn't happen? We wouldn't know a lot of things. So yeah. So I think that us holding out for cell phone hope, like we don't even know if the cell phones are there. Do you think that the killer took the cell phones? I mean, that'd be 4 cell phones you're walking out with. I definitely think it's odd that somebody would buy a brand new, it actually was not a brand new Range Rover. Let's back that up a little bit. One Price is a used automotive place. So usually you're turning in like neat like leases that aren't that like worn upon, so like a couple years, not too many miles. But hey girl, how are you? Midge, oh my god, Midge, how have you been? Hopefully you're not staying up too late for this one, or maybe you're like getting up early in the morning. All my UK people probably just getting out of bed. It is so very tragic. Absolutely. But I think that if I'm a parent, I kind of want to know what the other surviving roommates were doing that night, because we know what everybody else was doing. Like, why aren't we talking about the surviving roommates and what they were doing that night? Only because everybody wants to talk about this house as being a party house. Well, every college house, in my opinion, has the potential to be a party house. But what I can tell you is that if my house was partying that night at my house, we're throwing the party, right? That means that my roommates and I would not be leaving any house that we are occupying to throw a party at 10 p.m. So I kind of maybe feel like if it was maybe like just like a little pregame and then everybody went their way. But we don't know what those 2 other roommates were doing. We know that all 4 that were murdered left that residence and went out and did something. And then based on either surveillance or eyewitness accounts or digital evidence, they came back at a certain time. But no one's talking about what the 2 surviving witnesses were doing that night. And I think that that's something that needs to be talked about. So what were they doing? Where were they? Why were they in home? When they said that they got home at 1 a.m., where were they? Because they're saying that they got home at 1 a.m. That means that they weren't home before 1 a.m. So where were they? What were they doing? Who could they have possibly came in contact with? No one's talking about that. And that's a problem. I think that the media needs to hit more on that. mainstream media, that is, that gets to sit there and raise their little hands and pass microphones around. Yeah, them. But that needs to be talked about. And the whole thing of like, oh, we went downstairs in our rooms and we locked our doors. That's a very, like, are they alluding to the fact that these other people didn't lock their doors? Or why are they making it such a known fact that we locked our doors? And I'm not just that type of person that's going to think, like, outside the box, maybe. I don't really call it outside the box. I just call it as I see it. But a lot of people think I think outside the box, so. Maybe they had been drinking and sleeping off a hangover. I think everybody was drinking that night heavily. These were definitely not sober people. I think that if you watch the footage at the food truck, she can barely say her order. But guys, that's no reason. Like, they're in college. They were being smart. They walked. They got an Uber. I'm sorry, but I have no issues with that. And nobody should, because, like, that's nuts. They were clearly drinking, but still being able to be responsible. They were having a good night, probably like they've had every other night of the whole existence of their college experience. But this night, for whatever reason, went differently. And I think that there is, like, a reason, though. I don't think this is some random person that hit up 1122 King Street Road, whatever that goes by, street or road. No one just stumbled upon this place and savagely, brutally murdered 4 students. I just don't buy that. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Where were those? Like, we have all these web sleuths, and you're going to sit here and tell me that nobody knows where those 2 other students were? Where those 2 other roommates were? I call flat out bullshit. It's impossible. And I think that's I think that's a lot to do with the parents' struggle right now, because everybody else is being, rather forthcoming, whether it was because obviously their kids can't talk, but digital evidence can talk and surveillance can talk. But here we have, like, let's track down these 2 people. Where were they? And I just think that, that's what I'm going to talk about. I think the murders happened after 3 a.m., says our newcomer here, Michaela. Welcome. I think the murders happened after 3 a.m. The roommates were probably passed out by then. Well, why wasn't everybody passed out by then? People wonder why the one girl started calling her, ex-boyfriend, who she was, working to get back together with, or I shouldn't even say working. Like, if she wanted to be with the guy, she could be with the guy. It's kind of like that. But you know why she probably had the other girl calling? I just want to know, did her phone die? Because let's be honest, girls. You know how many times you're laying in bed and you're just too lazy to plug in your phone, and then it dies, and then you tell the girl who's like your best friend, who's spending the night, and she doesn't have her own bed anymore because she moved out. So she's sleeping in your bed, and you're like, oh my God, call, so-and-so, because your phone died, and you're just too lazy to get out of bed and plug it in. Come on. I do that, like, every night, and I'm not even drunk. I'm just, like, I'm not plugging my phone in. So could that be a reason that the, friend started phoning him because her phone died? Even if it didn't die, it could be like, well, you call and see if it answers. I mean, maybe he blocked me, or like that type of thing. But they were definitely in the same room and same bed, because she didn't live there anymore. And why isn't law enforcement talking about that? Well, because they're not going to, show their hand. Well, you're not really showing your hand. You're kind of asking for help from the public. And maybe something would maybe seem more off to people from that area, because maybe everybody thinks that girl still lives there. And maybe if you told people that she didn't live there anymore, that it would seem odd if, oh God, no wonder why so-and-so said this or said that. Like, you want to play games and you want to hold your hand back. Well, be prepared for people to call in erroneous tips because they think something completely different, And they called multiple people over before calling the police in the morning. Well, that to me is an easy explain. I'm going to explain to you how college life works. I'm in my bed. I wake up. And I'm like, oh my God, my head is pounding. I'm going to call so-and-so to come bring me a cheeseburger because they love me and they're going to do it for me. So I call so-and-so and I say, oh my God, I'm so hungover. Like, can you please bring me a cheeseburger? Or can you please bring me whatever? Or something to that effect. But you stay in your room and you're just like, first of all, it's not for somebody to sleep in. Like, they're the ones on the bottom. There's no windows. So you're like sleeping in like pure darkness, which is amazing. But so if you go to bed at, 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning, and just because they went in their rooms or they were, they were home by 1, this is all of their account. Like, this is just what they think, like, that they really look at their phones. Maybe they passed out. But at the end of the day, being in your room and you just turn on the TV and you're just like laying there, or like you start looking at your phone and you just start watching something, I don't think any of that is out of the ordinary. Nor do I think college kids just coming over to your house because if I made plans with you the night before to be like, we're doing kegs and eggs, or we're going out for brunch, like, just come over in the morning, and we'll all go to brunch. So that type of stuff, that's not concerning to me. Kind of, even being there and, if someone's just like, I don't know the crime scene, but I don't think it would be concerning that people came over that midday and that passed phones around in order to call 911, because I think people were freaking out. I think it went from like they're unconscious to like when you like turn them over, then there's like all this blood. So that's why they're not releasing the 911 call, because it went from my friend's like unconscious, like they're not breathing, and then like you turn them over and then you're just like losing your mind, But the 911 call, that phone was passed to multiple people. So multiple people were on that 911 call. Again, you just have to know the circumstances. And right now, I'm just choosing to believe law enforcement when they say that they have no idea how many people were in the house at the time of the 911 call. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, when the cops arrived, they didn't like keep everybody there and start like, where would you see like, they said this was a bloodbath. Like, there'd be like blood everywhere, right? Well, I don't think that anybody would be calling in the police originally and saying that it was unconscious person, and then all of a sudden it's like, but then the phone got passed around to multiple people and they were all like, I guess, screaming and losing their minds. So that's why they haven't released the 911 call. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. This seems so vicious, but it feels so random. A college kid does, nor have that. I think that you kind of like got to look at when they say that's a target attack. I think that, and this is just my opinion, but I would be leaning towards the person that had just moved out. And was about to leave for Texas, that just bought a brand new Range Rover. And there's just a lot of questions surrounding everything about her and her lifestyle. And I think that once you say the words that one of the students were targeted, I think that you kind of come clean with that. Or you should have never said it in the first place. But thank you so much, Tam. It was a bunch of people freaking out on the phone, in my opinion. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And I think that everybody should start saying, it is Moscow. It is not Moscow. So if you really want to talk about this case, it is Moscow, Idaho. Like O, Moscow, not Moscow. So I'm just going to help people out there. Came in as someone was unconscious. Yeah, they could have, because the first person that possibly called 911, all I'm saying is that phone was passed around, that the call originated inside the house, which I think is funny that they're using that wording. But why isn't anybody wanting to talk about where were the other two girls? You know, I live in Texas and I absolutely love your Delphi coverage. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A lot of time has gone into the Delphi coverage. I'm actually in Ohio and have tiptoed all over Indiana. To the point that I might want to get married there. Just kidding. I was about to ask that, but this is from Ashley. Ashley from wherever. I was about to ask that, but I did today in another chat and didn't get a reply. I've heard it pronounced both ways. It is definitely Moscow. Like it's not Moscow, it's Moscow. But they also say Xana and is that Ethan left the party after hours. Where did they go from there till 1? Well, that would be news. I love how on top of it Kaylee's sister is. I think she's like a true crimer herself. I did actually reach out to Kaylee to offer any services, but I think she just really wants them to nail down this timeline because she is hardcore, like, this is not the right timeline. I mean, you're clearly watching the food truck and they're there past 1:45, so why are you saying the girls arrived at their house at 1:45? And I would be the same way. I would be like her. I would definitely be on it. I would try to be respectful in the best of ways, but I think that they're frustrated with the fact that certain things aren't lining up that maybe that they're saying, so that's where the frustration's coming from as far as the parents go. But I would be the same way. Yeah, Moscow. Yeah, Moscow. Yeah, not Moscow. There you go. Great way to say it there. Sanger, Texas. Look at you. Is there any way to find out if any of the girls had OnlyFans? I mean, I normally don't visit OnlyFans. It just normally comes naturally for me to just pick up somebody, but I can definitely ask some friends. Yes, law enforcement did recently update their timeline, but that was due to Homegirl being adamant. I think that one girl did have an OnlyFans page. I think that if you kind of look at the money trail, Miss Marple, God, I love her. Miss Marple, how are you? I just love that you're here. This is interesting. Lacey says, I think it could be the killer locked the doors and they couldn't get in. That's why the 911 call. So you think the killer locked the doors and then pulled the slider. Is that what you're saying? Because that would be the only way that that's possible. But don't you think the person that came to the door, like, from the outside would be, like, calling, like, one of the people on the inside? But you're saying that maybe they didn't. From what law enforcement says is that the call originated from that residence, from one of the roommates' phones, though. So that would be interesting because that would mean that they're not home. I'm just going back on through chat here. They never say where their survivors were sleeping. If you go and listen to Ethan's parents' first interview, it gives you lots of clues. I think it was on one of the first things I've done. The doors were locked and they couldn't get in, but could hear their phones ringing. Now, let's think about this. If this is in fact true, which let's say that it's true. So that means that they were calling the people that weren't, or that were, murdered. So then the 911 calls didn't originate from inside and didn't originate from one of the roommates' phones, correct? Is that what we're kind of leaning towards? I think that's why it came in as an unconscious person. They couldn't see them. Friends and Ethan's borrowed, called, and word. Wait, Lana, I love you, but I need to be up at 4 a.m. Girl, we will talk about our merch line. Yes, I will make you available. You name the time tomorrow. Give it up for Octavia. We're working on some merch. We're going to have hoodies made up for the winter. And I think it's going to say on one sleeve, it's going to say, and there's Carolyn D with the right arm. But there you go, Octavia. I give you a great shout out. Get your merch, girl. Get your merch from Octavia. She's the slam. But we'll figure it out. I want snapbacks and facts all over one of my hoodies. I think that's why I came in. Let's go back up to what we were talking about, Octavia, before you squirreled me. Yes. So, well, if this is true, then that means that the law enforcement, they weren't being honest, because they said that one of the roommates' cell phones was the one that called 911. Think about that. So if 911 was actually called by somebody outside and from a phone that they owned, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's talk about that. Man, on my comments, there's like 3 comments before. Well, girl, you were just spitting some straight comments out over here. So let's see. Okay, here we go. They ran out of the house. Girls were hysterical. Okay. People who lived nearby saw commotion and went to help. The girl who called 911 fainted, and that is why call was for unresponsive person. Now, this would make sense, but why couldn't the freaking cops just say this? You know what I mean? Think about it. Let's just make it all like hysteria around it. Then Chicka Chicka goes on to say, friends and Ethan's brother called and word got around. Friends in their houses to see what the heck help Ethan. Then they discovered the other bodies. Ethan's brother. Thank you for that spell check there. Now, that makes way more sense, right? Absolutely. But why they speak in riddles? Well, yes, I get it. Cops do that all the time. But they're coming to the public to ask for help, but you're going to speak in riddles? That doesn't make any sense, right? But then nobody knows what to do in a situation like this, because not every day do you have a quadruple murder. You're like, now I have to go out and talk to the public. Well, that's what you kind of have the FBI and the CBI and all that for. But let's let Moscow police handle it, you know. That to me makes way more sense as, like, you know, somebody runs out of the house screaming like, oh my God, what the hell? And then she passes out. And then the 911 call, like, you know, that to me makes way more sense. But let's go back to where were the 2 surviving roommates? Where were they that night? Not saying that maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Maybe the 2 surviving people were the targets, but they couldn't get to them because their doors were locked. Okay, and the people that were sleeping on the couch woke up and were like, "What the F?" And so when you tell me that you take 4,000 pictures of a crime scene, that's a lot of pictures. 4,000 pictures. They said they took 4,000 pictures. That's a shit ton of pictures. 4,000 of a crime scene. That's a lot of pictures. I love Hot Ham Radio. They release these press releases every day with weird cryptic messages like, this random crime from last month is unrelated. Hot Ham, go take a hot bath and you'll be fine. So that's where I think they got the unconscious person, and the phone was passed around. Absolutely. The phone was definitely passed around. Now let's talk about it. If this was a bloodbath, and I hate to talk about it, so it's trigger warning, there would be, like, if there's blood all over the floor, okay? All these people were there, right? Who came in, who went out, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. So, were there bloody footprints leaving? And then everybody knows, okay, let's say that I use the same knife to kill 4 people. The first body I kill is not going to have any blood on it, unless it may be like from like Cast Away, because I'm stabbing somebody that's laying right next to somebody. But whoever is killed first, there's not going to be any blood from other people on that body. So I think that if the same knife was used on all 4 persons, that you're going to be able to tell the order that the persons were killed. That's my thought. Sloppy crime scene will bring justice. Yes, hopefully that can be the case, but I'm just getting really sick and tired of these, what do you call them? These pressers, and that you got these, I'm sorry, but these idiots asking the worst questions. Like, they should know the order. Like, why aren't we talking about footprints of blood? And, you know, was the crime scene, were there a bunch of bloody footprints? Did, you know, is there, you know, is there one killer? Is there 2? Is the knife, you know, how many different knives were there? Like, things like that. Yes. And I always like to say trigger warning, because I don't want people to think that we're talking about, you know, it's just facts. Ethan's brother and Dylan's boyfriend were there, neighbors outside, while roommate was hysterical. Thank you, BJ. I do appreciate that. I know that Ethan was a triplet, and his family was the first to speak out, and I thought that was awesome, because they wanted to get in front of the rumors about the drugs and, you know, whatever. And they wanted to tell their own story. And then I think they were kindly asked, all the families were asked, like, from law enforcement, like, hey, we can't tell you not to talk to the press, obviously, but we're just asking you guys not to say anything. Can you just give us some time to work, you know, the investigation? But I think that time is running out. I do. So I'm going to bring up something that I brought up earlier, and I just want your guys' opinion on it. You know, back when I was in college, we didn't have the availability to get Ring cameras, okay? But now, and for the past however many years that the Ring was available, why aren't all these college houses equipped with this? Let's think about it. You hear about college rapes all the time. You know, there's all this stuff that's available. Why aren't these landlords, in a way, just tacking them on just to even charge kids more money? It just kind of like amazes me. But I can tell you this, I live with all female athletes, and even though we were badass athletes, we would have still had the Ring had it been available, or any type of, like, you know, cameras like that. So did that area just nobody had Ring cameras? I just don't buy that. Any parent that sends their kid off to school, like, I know me, like, I have a boy, but I'll still be like, all right, well, I'm still gonna have you on my Family 360 Life app. Like, come on, man. It's kind of like a landlord has to have, like, okay, you have to have renter's insurance, because if you're an idiot and flood my house or burn it down, like, come on now. So I'm just amazed that, like, I get that we have, like, this food truck guy, but think about it. If he wasn't, like, doing that Twitch crap, like, we wouldn't even have that footage. So where's all this CCTV? Like, law enforcement either doesn't go out and get it in the time frame that they need to, because after so long it will be, you know, written over and whatnot. I just think that you got all these web sleuth people, and if you could just put to good use everybody's talents that, like, do this as a hobby, you'd be amazed at how many cases could benefit. The battery powder Ring doorbells are stick on temp. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. agree. And why not many cameras in the housing areas? I just think that I agree. Boop. The dog was named Murphy. Yes, the dog was Murphy. The dog is with Jack. Yep. They do ask some stupid questions. Thank you, chicka chicka. I love it. How is the dog doing? Like, I love dogs just as much as anyone, but just ask the press conference question. Hi, objection overruled. Good to see ya. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see ya. I'm sorry, but people can brag all they want about locking their doors. I do believe if somebody wants to get in, they're going to get into your place. But let's just try to catch them in the act of doing it, you know? They could just slit a window, throw a rock through it, you know? Yeah, it just... I just loved what the one family had to say. The one family was awesome when they were like, hey, nobody cares if you were underage drinking, okay? We don't care if you're in selfies with solo cups. Like, the cops don't care about that. They're not going to come after you for that. You know, if you have any of those pictures, or, you know, yada, yada, yada. But that was parents saying that. Law enforcement didn't say it. But that's how I think amazing these parents are being with, like, hey, they're not going to care about that. And if they do, we'll have something to say about that. Just anything that you can, you know, bring forward. And I think this is a lot for any law enforcement to handle when you're talking about, you know, 4 people. You got to deal with, it's 4 sets of parents. Anybody that's ever coached in their lifetime, you know how parents can be. And if I was these parents, I'd be down these cops' throats. No, but people... Okay, Hot Ham Radio says... No, but people brag about not locking their doors. I don't ever lock my doors. You know why? Because I got a big-ass shotgun to blow you away. No, I'm kidding, Hot Ham. I have many family members who talk about it openly, and it's so strange to me. Hot Ham, is that your, you know, Thanksgiving talk over there this past weekend? There you go. See, I knew Jeremiah would come through with that. Speaking of which, my Buckeyes took a bad loss this past weekend. We got knocked out of the top 4, so it's all right, though. I'm confident that the University of Spoiled Children will blow it. So that's USC for you guys that don't know. University of Spoiled Children. But yeah, let's go back to talk about it. I want to see somebody at a presser raise their hand and say, you've talked about where every student has been prior to the murders, except for the surviving 2. Where were they prior to coming home at 1 a.m.? You know? And then they're probably going to say something ridiculous, but at least it's out there. Our Browns did prevail. BJ, absolutely. BJ Catalano. And awesome. How about this? The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're probably going to have a losing season, and that will be the first time that this head coach has ever had a losing season while coaching Pittsburgh. But that's for all my sports fans. How does one person, you know, take on 4? Well, when they're sleeping. You guys, if the music is playing, you got to think about a college house. You know how many times I went to bed and our music was blasting? I couldn't even tell you how many times. And then on top of that, my room had its own TV on. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Oh, on the weekend, game day, absolutely. No, like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no. But we also trusted our roommates to be like, and nobody would be in our house in like the living room without one of us there. I mean, we had like house rules. So I don't know what their house rules were, but if I wanted to go to bed because I was tired, I would just go to, to my room. But it doesn't mean that, like, in the living room, other people, couldn't be hanging out or whatever. I just think it depends on what your house rules were and what was normal. And I think those should be, like, investigator type questions to ask. But if the music was playing and you're listening and that's loud and you got your own TV on and then you're drunk on top of it, so then you're passing out kind of, you hearing, like, even the I just don't think that would wake you up. I just think that you would, people just screaming and, like, running around chasing each other, like, it's just like a thing, being loud. And I think that it's crazy, actually, because when you think about it, even if I did, like, hear something and I popped up out of bed, but I still heard, like, the TV and the music playing and, like, there was nothing after it, I can't say that I would come out of bed and what's going on, because I wouldn't want to deal with the drunks. So that's kind of why I probably wouldn't. I just wouldn't want to deal with the idiots, because if I went out there, I would just raise holy hell. And they're going to be like, oh shit, Lana came out here, and I would just start MFing people, and then they're never. So. Let's see. Also, I'm a huge red flag that was the dog there that night? Is it for certain the dog was there? If the dog was in, as far as bark, I would have to know more about. Everything was hush hush around the dog, to be honest. And Eagles are 9-1. Great. Who gives a shit about the damn Eagles? Okay, chicka head. Just kidding. It's fine. It doesn't matter how many games you win in regular season, as long as we get our asses to the playoffs. But you keep on counting off them wins. We beat Tom Brady this past weekend with a guy that didn't have to sleep with 26 masseuses, so there's that. Eagles are killing it, no pun intended, right? I think the killer, this is from Outcast. I think the killer was in the house shortly before the murders and possibly unlocked the window of the middle floor spare bedroom to get in later. Interesting. I just don't think the house was locked. Hot Ham Radio. Leave Dieter alone. That's funny. Humanimal, how have you been there? How have you been? You know that the dog Murphy has the same name from that Netflix series in the Dark or Into the Dark. You know, Murphy, but she's actually like the girl of it, not the dog of it. But whatever. It's true crime. Midnight seems pretty late to talk. Pretty late to talk to be parent, right? I don't know what that means. Hi, Ashley. How are you? Happy to catch you live again. Thank you. Same. Can we talk about the dog Buddy that was skinned? Oh my God, no, we can't. That is not okay. People were saying the killer did it too. Yeah, but that has just been turned down. It's okay. We know that you only arrived. So sorry if you have discussed this, but do you think stepmom and Maddie's mother drugged? Oh my God. I only just arrived, so sorry if you have discussed this, but do you think Xana's stepmom and Maddie's mother's drug charges have anything to do with it? I mean, I don't think anything should be overlooked in a quadruple murder, so that's definitely it should be talked about, unfortunately. And you know what? I think this would raise a lot of questions for the other parents, and that's maybe why they want to talk about things, because they probably had no idea about this, you know what I mean? And they find out about it and they're like, oh God, okay, well, we want to talk about what we know. So Dog may not be much of a barker because used to high activity at home. Great point there, Outcasts. I know that I had to have my dog live with somebody else for the past couple months because people threatened my dog via social media. They said they were going to come after poor Teddy, and I couldn't have Teddy subjected to these fucking animals, these fucks. So my dog has to be with friends during this turmoil. Lisa Maxwell says, don't know where you're from, but Lisa, I saw a show once about smoke alarms, and they had many different ages in the building. After they were sleeping, they set them off. I was amazed how many different wake up. How many didn't wake up? Maybe they didn't hear anything. I think it's definitely plausible that they didn't hear anything, especially if they were drinking and they passed out. Definitely. I don't think it's wrong or rude to talk about either the fact that it's okay if you're drinking responsibly. Like, that's a college thing. I'm sorry, but if you feel differently, then maybe this is the channel for you. But these girls were, I believe, by every measure, safe in terms of they weren't drinking and driving. They were using somebody that was sober to get them to and from places that they went. And you should always feel safe at your home. And when somebody comes into your home and violates that, that's nothing on you as a human being. That's them as a perpetrator. So I feel that in this situation, and in many situations, if somebody wants to get to you, they will find a way to get to you. That's just the reality, and it's very, very sad. Let's see. That is awful, Atlanta. Poor dog. Yeah, poor human, too. I miss my dog. Dog may have known the person. Cough, cough, Jack. Well, sure, that's an option. You have a dog called Teddy, and you have somewhere else that's sad. And so, hell yeah, it's sad. My little Teddy girl. Yeah, I just bought her for my son, too. But it's okay. Teddy will be home shortly. These sick people. But yeah, so I think that us as sleuthers, you guys like to get after things. Well, I think that this live was to bring awareness to the fact that nobody is talking about where the two surviving roommates were that night prior to running to their rooms at 1 a.m. and locking the door and going to bed. So I think that we should talk about that. I think that we should get other people talking about it, only because, you know, if they were just as intoxicated as other people, maybe that brought, if they were at this place or that place, it brought riffraff in that they weren't aware of. I just think that no stone should go unturned, and this is one of those stones. And it amazes me that nobody wants to talk about it. So let's talk about it. I'm telling you, Kaylee was out of Jack's league. You know what? A lot of people are out of people's leagues, but maybe you just never know what they can do in the bedroom. So you just, and love is love. But I love how Chicka Head in the middle of the night wants to talk about out of their league. That's funny. Humanimal says, I think Murphy was used to people coming and going. He was highly socialized and may not have realized anything was wrong. Absolutely. Especially like people wrestling, college houses, especially if Murphy was sleeping. I mean, where was Murphy sleeping at, you know? Yeah, there's a lot of things. I would like to know where the surviving roommates were prior to the murders. Why were they so scared that they locked their doors that night? I want to know that. You know, exactly. Is that normal? Did they lock their doors? Absolutely. Absolutely. Where were they? I mean, the cops botched the whole timeline of the girls coming home, and they had a damn food truck to tell them. Oh my God. Maybe he was hung like a horse. Exactly. See, husbands think like that. So yeah. I wonder why Kaylee's family, this is from Outcasts. I wonder why Kaylee's family are so certain that Jack D could not be involved. I would not be willing to rule him out that quickly if it were my daughter and I knew of their breakup. Absolutely. I mean, I think for any family to go out in public and say that. I mean, remember Scott Peterson? They went out in public and said that Scott Peterson didn't do it. So, not every family knows everything. I think that no, you want to believe the best in people. Like, there's just no way possible. He's always over at my house and we're eating dinner, we're grilling out. It's just not possible. Like, he's like the best kid ever, blah, blah, blah. Those are all natural things to think and say. And it's kind of like how people end up in this type of situation in the first place. I mean, maybe during their breakup, she was talking to an older guy, and I mean, maybe she told her parents that she bought the Range Rover, but really, somebody else did. And somebody else co-signed for her and put down the down payment, and so that her payments would only be like $300 a month. Who knows? But all of that will come out in an investigation. So, and that it's normal to want to think the best of somebody. But I think that it's important to know where those other two roommates were, especially they were the surviving roommates. Because what if they were out that night bitching about the other roommates, and somebody was, okay, well, I'm going to go handle them. You just never know. So I think it's fair for us to ask where those other two roommates were before 1 a.m. when they got home. And I think it's fair to ask what was going on, like, throughout that day. I know that there was a football game, things like that. Like, you said that they went at the bar at 10. Well, where were they prior to 10? You said that they were at the frat house at, you said they left the frat house at 1. Well, where were they before? It's very vague. I've never seen a food truck stream before. Well, I think it's perfect. I think that bars should start doing it. Like, let's just sit at home and watch all these drunks order drinks at the bar. I think it's fabulous. I thought of a sugar daddy buying that car. Well, kind of like, I know that, okay, so in college, I bought a Jeep. Well, actually, I leased a new Wrangler because I wanted a Wrangler. And my mom never asked 2 questions about it. Like, I just went and leased the fucker. College kids have good credit. Like, no credit's not bad credit. I don't know. But my mom never really kind of asked, like, so if somebody would have done that for me, unless she asked me and I lied to her, like, but she never asked. And but I also had a job when I did it. But I guess, could somebody have done that for me? Absolutely. And could I have just been like, yeah, I went out and did this myself? Absolutely. So I think that trail should be looked into. But I also didn't go out and buy a Range Rover. I bought a brand new 2006. I leased it, a Wrangler. I just wanted to have fun, just the top down. They said Jack was really good at tennis and did other things, so maybe he's tougher than he looks. Yeah, he was a juggler too. I think he could juggle the ball. Never underestimate a tennis player, says Hot Ham Radio. What did they, Chicka Head says, what did they do during the day? Who were they with? Or the day before, what happened? Absolutely. And also, you're talking about a targeted thing, so if people knew that 2 of those people didn't even live there, so just, like, think about that. I feel for these families, though. Like, they just went through Thanksgiving. Like, I don't think a holiday's ever going to be the same again. And, I think one of the sisters is very adamant that, like, wait, why do you guys think that you're safe? She's like, 4 people were just murdered. So if 2 people, or if 1 person was targeted, How does 4 people die? Think about that. Somebody had some serious balls going in there and thinking that they could get away with that. Think about that. Or maybe they don't give a shit if they get caught. But the psychology around that, I just think, and then to know it's been this long and like nothing. So think about what their thought process was. They truly thought they would get away with this. But did they plan to go in there and kill 4 people? Did they plan to go and kill all 6? Did maybe they only think that, like, they were totally not expecting for these people to be there because they don't live there anymore? A lot of variables. I thought I saw a new cast. Here we go. Just Kendra. Love the name and thank you for the new membership. Do appreciate that. I thought I saw on a newscast that the surviving roommates were at a party prior to 1 a.m. Yeah, but they were so vague about it. Absolutely. Like we kind of need more detail than that. Chicka Head says, I was driving my friend's Benz G wagon, who was an older guy and sold drugs, and my mom did question me. Well, I'm so glad that she caught on to the G wagon. I mean, drug dealers always drive G-Wagons, duh. Humanimal says, Kaylee may have saved the deposit and gotten finance for the rest. She had a job to go into Texas. She could have just showed over the earnings. Absolutely. Maybe she pocketed some dough. Let's see. Humanimal. I don't think anything is wrong with Jack. Maybe it was the other way around. Also, there's KS talk of OF that might have paid for a few things. Is that code for something? We can just say it on this channel. There is a picture. Next question. There is a picture or statement. There is a picture of just the 5 roommates together, and you can see the big smiles on Maddie, Kaylee, and Sienna, but the 2 others just seem different somehow, in my opinion. Yeah, I kind of know what you're saying about that. BJ. I feel like law enforcement is like Barney Fife. Gotta love that comment right there. So did you see the... Yep. I see, and I'm not a fan of Chris, but I'm glad that you tuned in. I watched Chris tonight, and he had 2 FBI profilers on, and there were 8 points of possible entries into the house. They said whoever did this was very comfortable around the area. I don't disagree. This was not just a random attack. No doubt. But why that night, that time? Think about it. Nobody was in that house other than the 2 that were there at supposedly 1 a.m. So if they were the targets, why not go in at 1 a.m.? So they weren't the targets. And then, it's interesting. There is talk of OnlyFans. Can't type on this phone. Don't worry about OnlyFans. Morning all. Just woke up catching it. Yes. Hi, Julie. Welcome. We are going to be closing this out. I have to keep this around an hour when I do pop-ups. Pop-up little live. So, yeah. I think that, we should definitely get around and start asking some questions about where the 2 other roommates were. The surviving roommates, where were they? I do think that you're going to see a lot of movement with the sorority and fraternity lifestyles here soon. And they're going to be pressured into speaking about what they may or may not know, because obviously the people were at a fraternity before they, came home, and I think that you're going to start seeing the parents get vocal here if the police, I think that they give them through the holidays, if that, because a dad said it best today. He's like, they're my only hope. As much as I want to, say this, that, or the other, without them, we have nothing. So as much as you want to criticize the police, we still need them. And that's a very good point. And so hopefully he keeps that in the back of his mind. I just think that there's probably ways to go about things, and maybe they should use somebody's platform to maybe speak, because mainstream media is going to control everything that they try to say. They're going to, unless they do something live, mainstream media is going to cut it and edit it to the way that they want it to represent their channel. So maybe the YouTubers out there will go ahead and venture into the families to give them a platform where they cannot be censored. Will be interesting. Yeah, Maddie did have an OnlyFans page, so let's just stop the speculation. I've seen it. Definitely she had an OnlyFans page. Do I think that got her killed? God, I hope not. The only other two that were expected to definitely be there at that house were Xana and Maddie. Well, I don't even know if Xana was expected to be at that house, because if you think about it, why couldn't Xana sleep where her boyfriend slept? So then you go to the fact of Maddie and just the two survivors. How did the killer see in the dark? BJ, great question. Who said it was dark? People, when they're drunk, they pass out with all the lights on. But that's a good way to end. I like that question. Everybody take that, go to sleep with it, or if you're just waking up, go ask your friends about it. But either way, like this video, consider being a member of Fight for a Family or Truth and Transparency. You guys are awesome. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, subscribers. Thank you, new members. And yeah, go rock your day. Sleep your night. And Ashley, you are just too kind. You take care as well, love. Until next time, Truth and Transparency, appreciate you. And be sure to check out all the upcoming, the new Delphi stuff that I have is pretty fire, but please consider looking into the Sunset Secrets podcast, as we are fighting for Sheldon Jeter Jr.'s innocence and getting a new trial. So if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, that's why you guys should look in. It's Sheldon Jeter Jr.'s out of Pennsylvania. So
I know it's late. I know you're weary. I know your plans don't include me. Still here we are, both of us lonely, longing for shelter from all that we see. Why should we worry? No one will care, girl. Look at the stars, so far away. We've got tonight. Who needs tomorrow? We've got tonight, babe. Why don't you stay? Deep in my soul, I've been so lonely. All of my hopes fading away. I've longed for love like everyone else does. I've seen it all and here we are. What do you say? We've got tonight. needs tomorrow.